Hello, welcome once again to Other Underground Railroad. I am your host, or better yet, your conductor, Dr. Nichols, and I'm here with a very special guest, somebody that I've known for a very long time. And, I consider him to be my brother, but at the same time, there are things that I've been wondering about him that I've been learning recently, and I want to know even more. And he's got a very interesting story. So I wanted to introduce our audience. If you don't already know him for being one of the dopest MCs around, Napoleon Da Legend, aka Kareem Borhain. What's going on, brother?
Hey, what's up, man? I'm honored to be on this podcast, and also always good to talk to a friend, man. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And so my first question for you is so first of all, our audience a little bit of a story. Um, for some reason, I'm hearing a little echo from you. Is that
You,
yours?
you're hearing what? An echo?
Yeah, there's like an echo of my voice. All right, looks like it's gone. Anyway,
Right, cool.
so I wanted to tell the audience about the first time that I met you. I was rapping. I was in a particular rap group at the time, and honestly, I don't want to toot my own horn, but we were like big guys on campus at the time. You know what I mean? Like we were kind of holding it down at the university at the time. And the guy that was in my group was like, yo, I met this other MC. We need to collaborate with him. I was like, why collaborate with anybody? You know what I'm saying? We're the best guys. We're the top guys on campus. People are chasing us. He was like, no, you don't understand. This dude is that dope. So we met up at the studio one night. We were gonna record. It was me, that other guy, you, your man Malik, and Edon. So if you're an underground hip hop fan, you probably know Edon. And we were all in there, and it was like one of my first sessions in a professional studio. And you were doing things that I had never seen or heard or anything. You blew all of our minds. You know what I'm saying? And so I got to say, for a while, we were all chasing you. You were the standard, you know what I'm saying? As far as MCing, we were all like, in the back of your mind, if you're an MC, you know somebody that's dope, you always have that dude in the back of your mind when you're writing the rhyme, when you record the rhyme. And even though you were my man, there was always that friendly competition where I was like, yo, I know Napoleon's gonna have some stuff right now. I know Napoleon's work ethic as an MC, so I'm really glad to see that you're doing it professionally. But one of the things that I've seen from going up to your crib when we lived in the same building was that you're an avid reader. I noticed that you do a good amount of reading. You always have books lying around. We would have conversations about books. What books do you think influenced you the most in life, or even as an MC, or anything that you're doing? What book or books?
Man, there's a lot. I'll name a few. I'm gonna forget some, of course. I I would say like the autobiography of Malcolm X was like a big book for me that I read. That I used to read a lot of autobiographies or biographies, just so you know. I'm interested in stuff like that. So Nelson Mandela's biography, also Bill Clinton's biography. I was curious about the lives of a lot of politicians. That was always my thing. And also, I read Marlon Brando's biography too, some randomly. I would say on some spiritual type tip. My mother had a lot of spiritual books laying around, so I read Eckhart Tolle's "The Power of Now" and "The New Earth." So that kind of opened me up to different things. I read Siddhartha. So it's like between politics, between like new age spiritual type books and Buddhist type books and all types of things. Those are some of the foundational books that like got me interested in reading more and more. You know.
Right. And so, did you speak English or French?
Mostly they were in English because I was here, but there was a few French books that I read. Like actually, I think the Marlon Brando biography was in French. That because that's just the version that I had. Somebody gifted it to me, and most of them were in English. There was a few French books that I read, but I can't tell you off the top of the head, which one they were.
And so just to give people a little bit of your story, can you just like break down how you got to this point, where you are right now? And you know, I was learning stuff about the history of where it is that you come from. So if you could just break that down for us real quick.
Yeah, I was born in Paris, France. Both of my parents are from a place called the Comoros Islands, which are four islands in the lower East Africa between Tanzania and Madagascar. One of the islands now is part of France because since it was a French colony, they kept it. So my mom is from that island called Mayotte, which belongs to France, and my dad's from an island called Anjouan. And then when I was younger, the family moved to Washington, D.C. and Maryland. I was about around 4 years old, something like that. And so I grew up in that whole area. And make a long story short, went to school. I got into school like early, so I graduated high school like I was 16. So I was like early, and at the same time, my parents, it was the relationship was getting rocky for due to a lot of reasons in the house, and they split up. They divorced, and my father went to the Ivory Coast, and my mother chose to go to Paris. And they asked me if I wanted to follow, and I told them I wanted to stay in America. So I stayed, and I went to Maryland University where me and you met. I had a I was spending a lot of time with with a, like kind of a surrogate family, like a second family that was up there, some Cameroonians, and and then I decided as I was doing music that things in DC and Maryland were kind of stale. They weren't really moving, you know what I mean? Like I couldn't even, I don't know, man. I just had so many experiences that were kind of like not ideal. I had some great ones too, but I had somewhere it was just like this is kind of whack. And I decided to move to New York, and I ended up in Brooklyn, where I've been for the last like 6 years, something like that. And has proven to be a good move for me when it comes to music because I was able to quit my job and go at it full time. And I've been traveling, doing shows, releasing projects, collaborating with wonderful artists this whole time. So it's like I felt like my development came from DC and Maryland as far as, just living artists. We was traveling too, don't get me wrong. I was going all over the place, including New York. But career wise, when I really understood what the game was about, really meeting some key people in the game, it was when I came to Brooklyn. Brooklyn spreads love, and it's true.
Right. So what can you tell us a little bit about the history of Comoros Islands? Because honestly, I'll be honest, I thought I knew most of the places in the world. When I was young, we had this thing where we had to fill out a map of the world. It was easy because back then the Soviet Union was together, so it was like that was
Right.
a third of the world. But that was something I had to do in sixth grade. But even then, I remember Madagascar, and of course all of Africa, and I knew the whole map. But I had never heard of Comoros Islands until I met you. So can you
Right.
tell us a little bit about like the history of the Comoros Islands?
Well, all right. In a nutshell, I'll go. I believe the Comoros Islands were discovered by some Portuguese sailors, like in the 1500s, and they discovered the islands, and there was obviously people there already. A lot of the people are from Tanzania, like coming from there, and there's a few people from Madagascar too. And then it was colonized and discovered, quote unquote, discovered by the Arabs and certain people from the Yemen area and the Saudi Arabia area, and they brought religion into the country, which is mostly Muslim. And there are some Christians. Like my mother actually grew up Catholic over there, so it's like there are some Christians over there too. My father grew up Muslim, and later on, I'm making a long story short. Later on, the French colonized the island, and they were slavery there. You know, they had slaves like working for them and everything like that for a long time. I'm not sure about the years, but they kept a grip on the country, and through political pressure and international pressure too, because around like the 60s and 70s, that's when a lot of some of the colonies in Africa, which were colonized by France and British, the Belgium, Germans, and a whole bunch of people started getting their independence. And that momentum led them to demand their independence. And I think they got it in 1975. So they became an independent country. However, through a vote, or overwhelming vote, the French, through some sort of like manipulation, they separated the islands and took the vote island by island, even though it's a one cohesive country with one people, one culture, and they kept Mayotte. So Mayotte stayed French. And in between that time, there's been over 20 coups d'etats, meaning insurrections where the presidents were taken over by force. And a lot of them were due early on by the French mercenary called Bob Denard, who was unofficially working with the French Secret Service, but you know, they would never admit that. And he killed two presidents. And later on, there was like just a lot of back and forth. The current president, Azali, also took power through a coup d'etat in 1999. So it's still pretty recent, like the shift in powers over there. And there's a lot of interesting things about Comoros. It's like a tropical island. There's like the biggest volcano crater in the world over there. There's a lot of trade that goes through that place, through the Mozambique Channel. And that's the reason why France wants to have a presence there, because it's from a geopolitical standpoint, it's strategic. And there's a big crisis. Just another interesting and tragic fact. The biggest quote unquote underwater cemetery is between the islands of Mayotte and Anjouan, where my mom and my father are from, because a lot of people from Anjouan are trying to flee to Mayotte in order to get the benefits of having, you know, hospitals, because Mayotte is French. So it's like going to France over there. So there's like a quote unquote immigration problem going on. So they go on these small boats, and over the years, over 20,000 people have died making that journey from one island to the other. And it's not that far. It's like probably 40 kilometers, which is like, I guess like 30 miles or something like that. No, I think it's probably 30 or 40 miles or something. And people are going in small boats, and you know, there's a whole problem over there. And the people from that island are being demonized in Mayotte. They're treated as thieves, as clandestines, as immigrants. So the same thing we're seeing at the border in America, where Latinos and Mexicans are being demonized. It's happening with the same people in that island.
So, are the people from Mayotte, are they French citizens? Did they become French citizens? Like,
yeah. It used to be a territory, but now they made it full-fledged France, a French department. So they get citizenship, they get everything that a French citizen would get. So medical coverage, they have access to schools, they could travel back to France. So there's a lot of things that, meanwhile, with all the instability in the other three islands in Comoros, that's the reason why certain people were trying to leave.
Right.
But France really didn't allow for Comoros to be developed with these coups d'etat, these mercenaries coming in. Every time there was a president that wasn't pro-France or pro their agenda, they would just take them out. And it would leave the country in shambles. And without any type of stability, how could development happen?
Right. So is there an ethnic difference between Ajuan and I'm gonna say the wrong
My
Mayotte.
No, there's not. There's not. It's the same people. For all the islands, it's the same people. There's, every island has their certain slang and certain little things, but it's the same people. You wouldn't recognize going from one island to the next. You wouldn't you wouldn't really see the difference at all. And like I said, a lot of people, some people from Anjouan have family in Mayotte and vice versa. I do. My mother's from Mayotte, my dad is from Anjouan. So I have cousins there. I got, my grandma was in one island and, rest in peace. The other one, rest in peace, was in the other island. So it's it's a bad situation when it comes to that. Like they go into these boats called kwasa, they call them death boats, and they pack like 50 of them in there. And you're going through ocean water, there's sharks, and a lot of people lose their lives,
Yeah, I
babies,
mean
all types of things.
yeah, I mean I know there's a similar thing. Haitians do a similar thing. Um, packing in these boats and they go to Puerto Rico. They try to get into Puerto Rico. So they
Right.
have these boats. Dominicans do the same thing. They try to go to Puerto Rico or to Florida or somewhere where they can get into the United States more easily. And they get in those boats. They call them yolas, which basically it's a death trap. You get in them, you're probably not. There's a good chance you're not gonna make it, and it's a really sad thing. A lot of people drown.
Right.
Nobody really knew where to place you ethnically a lot of times. And I was wondering if that made it harder for you in terms of finding community. Um, you're in the country by yourself. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I know if I went to France, I'd be looking for whatever black community I could find, and especially if there's an American community, and especially if there's an American black community. You know what I mean? That's like
Yeah.
what I would be looking for to connect with. There aren't a
Right.
lot of Comorians in the U.S. I don't think. Um,
No, it's not a lot.
so when you're looking for community with other people, you looking amongst the African community, and how is it being that you said you like were close to some people from Cameroon. Like I don't
Yeah,
think
look.
you look different than a lot of Cameroonians, at least the ones that I know. You know what I'm saying? So is it harder to find community?
Well, there's a lot of different shades and a lot of different, looking people in Africa. My mother was half German. She never met her dad, so that's why I look the way that I look. I don't look like the average Comorian either. And but I've never had a problem connecting because it's my culture. I grew up in an African household, and when you meet other Africans, especially French-speaking Africans, the connection happens right away. They understand that you know the culture, and the same way over here with African Americans, I never had a problem connecting, even though certain people thought I was either Puerto Rican or Dominican and things like that. It was never something. I think it's one of those things. If you project that people will have a like an issue or you act a certain way, they probably will feel it, and if you don't, they'll just accept it for what it is. And it's just like the culture. You can't tell a person's culture from just looking at them.
Right. Yeah. And what do you think about where you and I again from a different era of hip hop? Um, what do you think about where hip hop is going, where the music is going, where technology is going in hip hop? You think it's a good thing? Do you think it's something that is there something that you would like to see happen?
Well, personally, I don't mind where it's going because personally, as an artist doing it, it gives me like total freedom to record and put my music out. I don't have to wait on nobody. Nobody has to tell me what to do. If I have an idea, I could execute it and make it happen tomorrow. I don't have any red tape or any A&Rs or stuff like that telling me what to do. I just I connect directly to my fans. So I like that part of it. That's what technology changed when it comes to that. when it comes to the hip hop music as a whole, I think there's always going to be the real pop, commercial rap, and the trendy stuff. And there's going to be more of what I consider myself. I'm an artist. You know, I make music. I come up with concepts. It's not like I'm not thinking about numbers or statistics when I go in and do what I do. I'm not like I need a record. I need to have this type of song and then this type of song to speak to that. I do whatever I feel, which is the difference. And both are fine. You're always gonna need that pop commercial rap for that type of crowd and these type of records. I do something that's very unique. I do some hip hop. I have some Afrobeat records. I'll blend both together. And I don't see a lot of people doing that the same way that I'm doing it.
Right. So do you do the Afrobeat stuff only in English, or do you do it in French? Or
Mostly in English, but I've had some records where I throw a bit of French in it, and I'm sure I'm gonna do that more in the future. You know, however it feels. Like I said, I just whatever the inspiration takes me, whatever feels right. Like I had this single called Poulet Mafé, which is like a chicken dish from Senegal or from that part of Africa. And it's just because it came into my head. I wasn't thinking like I'm gonna say something in French just to have French there, you know. Whatever feels right over the beat. Both languages like feel different over the beat anyway. So it's like you can't flow the same way in either language.
right. Yeah. It always I gotta get a copy. When we did this song called, we call it Distinguished Man or something, we called it, with
All
Scott
right.
beat, and you rapped in French on that. It was a crazy track.
Yep. Find it, send it to me.
Yeah, for sure. Um, so talking about, politics and American politics right now. I know you're somebody who pays attention to politics and presidential politics. What are you thinking about 2020 right now?
2020 is going to be very, very interesting. I cannot predict who's going to win. I think Trump has a very good chance of taking it again, which makes the 2020 that much more urgent for the Democrats and the other side. And I think the field is very talented. The pool of talent from the Democratic side is like top notch. There's a lot of very charismatic people, very interesting stories, very good communicators. Um, so it's in the air right now. I would, of course, personally, I do not want Trump to win. I favor the left-leaning part of the Democratic ticket over the centrist, more centrist parts of the ticket, meaning that I'm definitely my favorite candidate is Bernie, and then you go to war, and then you keep going on to the right. But whoever does win the Democratic ticket, that's who I'm gonna vote for because definitely don't want 4 more years of Trump.
Right. Um, do you think that being Comorian, do you think that gives you a different perspective on politics than other Americans?
I think it might, and even when you say Americans, it's like America's big. You know what I mean? Like the coastal America and the middle America. Like even us on the coast, we probably don't have the same perspective that people in middle America already. Or people further down south. But overall, I think so because I believe that America is still a democracy. Also, it's a work in progress, like everywhere else. A country being unstable and moving more towards authoritarian type rule, how it causes a lot of suffering and it causes a lot of destruction. Me personally, I consider myself a socialist. And I know for a long time, you couldn't even mention being a socialist in America without it being like a dirty. But further than just going through isms, I believe the government should be there to help the people. There's certain basics that we should have. I believe in Medicare for all. I believe in worker rights. I believe these things as like a pillar and a basis for, because once you have that anxiety taken away, and you don't have people getting sick and going bankrupt and certain things like that, or workers working for next to nothing, everybody does better. The money circulates better.
So, in Comoros, do they have? Do you know if they have universal health care?
Actually, I don't know how the healthcare works. I know it's not as expensive as America.
We were having some trouble there in terms of, the thing was breaking up, the feed was breaking up. But I agree with you 100% about the way we look at uh, military action. Definitely as being something that is a given. We have the military, and not even necessarily our military, because a lot of our military actions happen from private contractors. But there's a blank check for all of that. Eric Prince, that guy's a billionaire, not only just because he's from a billionaire family, but also because he started Blackwater, whatever Blackwater is called now, and he gets these $1 million or $100 million checks written from the government to go over and fight wars. And if you can go in, and I know some guys who were former Delta Force, former Green Berets, or Navy SEALs and stuff like that. You can go fight for the government and make $40,000 a year, putting your life on the line, or you could become a private contractor and do the exact same thing and make $100,000. So what are they going to do? They're going to get out of the military, use the skills that they have, do the exact same job, and get paid better for it.
Right.
Because our government is writing checks to these private entities, and we never question about that, but we will question about a congressional district like the one I live in, the 7th district in Maryland, with Elijah Cummings. We'll question if they get a couple $1 billion, for development. We question, universal health care and how we're going to pay for it and all that kind of stuff. But, we question universal pre-K. We question, funding schools, but we don't question, not even stuff that's having to do, and we always call it defense, but in a lot of cases, we're not defending ourselves. We're going out and, doing things that have nothing to do with defending ourselves from anything.
Well, America is a colonial empire, and people, it's not branded as that, but that's what it is. We have military bases all over the world. And if we contract people like Blackwater, is for them to do our bidding and to follow our agendas. The problem also, when we do take military action, what really comes out of it? And we're not often honest about the fact that we don't improve any situations oftentimes. And some of it is causing people want to flee their countries. You know what I mean? Like in Honduras, there's this bad dictator over there, and some people want to leave, and they come to America. Now there's an immigration problem, quote unquote, and that's all due to, or mostly due to our tampering in other people's business, where we probably shouldn't be there.
Oh, absolutely. We talk about Central America. I mean, that whole immigration crisis is basically caused by the United States and by our intervention in El Salvador and in other parts of Central America, Nicaragua, and all of that. We created that. We created, a lot of the drug issues we have. We created the crack cocaine era, which you and I came up in. You know what I'm saying? Like the DC area that you and I came up in is a lot different than the one that these kids are living in now. It was
Right.
a wholly different place. DC was different. Even some of the areas, like right now, these people, like I used to tell this ex-girlfriend of mine, I used to be like, yo, you don't know what U Street used to be.
Right.
U Street in the 90s, and you know what I'm saying, and in the 80s. It was a different place. It wasn't this trendy place that it is right now. And so all of that.
Last time I came to DC, like a few years back, I think 2017, I had to do this interview on somewhere in Northeast or Southeast, I forgot, and there was like a Whole Foods there, and like people jogging in the street, and I'm like, the changes and the gentrification that's happening is pretty severe, you know?
Oh, absolutely. I remember. I don't know if you remember this, but you remember Trinidad in D.C. in Northeast, like the Trinidad
Yeah,
area.
yeah.
That was like they almost basically had martial law. They had a freaking they had to do a curfew for the area because there was so many shootings. Now it's basically all of that is getting gentrified. You know what I'm saying? I'd say probably 50-50 white and black now. And pretty soon it's going to be 80-20, white to black. You know, um, it's good that the crime is going down, but it's bad that they're moving people out in order to achieve it instead of getting people what they need, jobs, healthcare, all the things that they need.
And look, have you heard that in Newark, there's a water crisis going on over there? And it's crazy that we're having like Flint, Michigan type water crises in different types of cities in America, and we're not funding the development of that system, and we're not addressing that. We're thinking like it's normal when there's plenty of money going around.
Right. And Newark is right across the bridge from New York City, or right across from New York City. And New York City has some of the cleanest water in the country, you know, because they're not going to give Donald Trump poison water. You know what I mean? But people in Newark, Trump Tower is not going to have dirty water. You know what I mean? But people in Newark, you know, I'm pretty sure Newark is a majority black and brown city. You know what I'm
It
saying?
is.
And they're not gonna, they'll give dirty water to Tretch, but they won't give dirty water to Trump. And
Exactly. Same way they'll give healthcare and this and that to certain people, and some people are not deemed worthy of it for different reasons. And it's just a flaw in the system. I have a different philosophy. I understand some people are like pull yourself up by your bootstrap types, but that's not. I don't believe in that. I believe that the government should work for us. The people that have so much money are still gonna have so much money. They're still gonna be rich. Their lifestyle won't change a bit, and millions of people are gonna be able to live better with less anxiety and able to raise their kids better, raise their family better, live a better life. I mean that reverberates for everybody. Like once you have a place where people are living so good and people really poor next to them, there's gonna be tension. There's gonna be violence. You see that in Comoros. You see that in Maya. There's rich people. There's poor people. There's always problems. We're not saying some people can't be rich. We're saying we could reduce the poverty.
if you raise the bottom floor, you know what I mean? Like that's what we really want is a better lifestyle. And people who say that, universal health care can't be done, people who uh say that you can't have Medicare for all in this country or single payer health care, they forget about places like France. They forget about, places like Canada and
UK.
yeah, and UK. All those places have, some sort of a hybrid system. And you don't need to get rid of your private health insurance. And Elizabeth Warren made, I think, the best point. I've never heard anybody say they like their health insurance. They say they like their doctor. You know what I mean? They say they like, their clinic or whatever, but I've never heard anyone say, "Oh, I love my health insurance." You know what I'm saying? Personally, I've never heard that.
I've never heard that either.
So I think to me, if we can get people the same services where they don't have a bill, you know what I'm saying? And somebody, and your prescription drugs, think about it, like your prescription drugs, if you have cancer or you have HIV, you know what I'm saying? Magic Johnson, let's say. Magic Johnson, I bet you I don't know, but I'm assuming, I think I have read somewhere that, it's like $4,000 a month or something like that, if you're out of pocket to get like the one pill joint. where like he basically doesn't have it. He can't pass it on. He can have freaking unprotected sex with his wife and everything is good. Um, you know, but the average cat on the street can't afford that. You know what I mean?
Right.
And insurance ain't gonna pay, that kind of money. And so we got people out here spreading it around. You know what I'm saying? Putting everybody in danger.
Once you have people like really doing bad and struggling, it's gonna reverberate everywhere else. It's
Totally.
not. We can't just ignore it. Like, oh, okay, I'm doing okay. There's some people that have it hard out here for different reasons, and we can't find ways to help them out. It's just the vision of the world. You know what I mean? It's just I can't be like that. I go to Brownsville. Sometimes I do workshops for the kids. I see the way they live in. It's not cool, man. And there needs the system has to take care of that. That's how you make America great again, so to speak. Or that's just how they make America great. I don't even want to use that phrase again after great.
Right. No, I agree. I agree 100%. If you got people who have health care, they don't get tuberculosis and cough on the train and get other people sick. You know what I'm saying? If they can get treatment, you know what I mean? If you got people who have, you know, they get their cancer treatments or they get whatever, or they get screening so that they can catch breast cancer early. You don't have, teenage kids, or young kids whose mothers die of breast cancer. And then they basically have no one to take care of them. You know what I mean? There's a lot of problems that get eliminated when, people have health care, for all of society. Because guess what? If that woman dies of breast cancer, who takes care of the kids? You know what I'm saying?
It's about human decency too. Like what kind of place you see somebody that's sick, that when you're sick, you can't take care of yourself. You're sick, you're feeling bad, and you can't do anything. Your life could be going well, then you get sick, and because of that, you're just bankrupt and broke, and you're in debt. It's crazy.
Yeah, no. The thing is, I think about people is that you pay on the front end or you pay on the back end. You're gonna end up paying anyway for other people's health care.
Right.
If they go to an emergency room or if they get hospitalized, because it's something that if they had been screened early and gotten it taken care of early, they could have been, okay. And then they get sick and sicker and sicker. And then they need to get hospitalized, but they don't have insurance and they can't pay for it. Who do you think pays for that? We do. You know what I'm saying? So you either pay on the front end or you pay on the back end. You know what I'm saying? And I think if you pay on the front end, you end up paying less. Somebody gets screened for something, some illness or anything, and they can take care of it early, that makes it the bill a lot lower than somebody who's, gonna get sick later and die.
I agree.
Yeah. So I'm not gonna take up, too much more of your time. I want to thank you again for coming on tour with us. This is, again, we're definitely going to have you on again. Actually, maybe even next week because I'll be in New York. Maybe we can link up and get a straight, fresh recording. You know what I'm saying? And we can go from there. But I wanted to thank you again for taking time out. I know you're a busy man. I also, well, actually, I'll let you plug any shows or any music that you got coming out.
On October 19th in Manhattan at the Mercury Lounge, I'm doing a show with Killer Priest and the Dysfunctional Family and DJ Bizarro. So if you're in the Manhattan area, come out to see that. It's going to be a dope show. I'm on project number 6 for this year. Last year I put out 10, so I'm always working. I also have a Patreon, which is new. So if you want to become a patron and contribute to what I'm doing, it's patreon.com at Napoleon Da Legend. So, you could contribute a little bit. I don't have a machine behind me. So everybody, the supporters are very important for what I'm doing. And I appreciate the contributions so far. And get on my website, hit me on Instagram and Twitter. It's crazy how life brought us here, being in the building and making music together and hanging out, crazy nights and all types of stuff. And for you to be doing what you're doing, for me to be doing what we're doing, and we still linking up, it's a great thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think I see a lot in the future. You know what I'm saying? Music, film, all kinds of stuff we'll be doing in the future. I really see it. You know, just keep grinding. And, you know, thanks to all the listeners and all the viewers. And just want to say peace out. Thanks, Napoleon.